This is the Halting Winter podcast. I'm your host, Seth Winterhalter. Halting Winter is a consulting company dedicated to helping people achieve peak performance in body, mind, and soul, their physical, their mental, and their emotional states of being. We also exist to help organizations reach their peak potential and performance. We specialize in vision, culture, strategy, structure, and making sure you are thinking creatively about how you get from point A to Z. So if you need help in that, we'd love to set up a chat. You can go to HaltingWinter.com and learn more about how to get in contact with us. Today, I want to talk about a topic that I continue to see on social media and in the news and just on the kind of the business side of buzz, and that is the topic of quiet quitting. What is going on with the epidemic of quiet quitting? Well, what is quiet quitting? Again, I'm not sure. I think, at least this is what the idea that I have in the articles I've read, quiet quitting seems to be when you're an employee of a company or organization, and for some reason, you don't like the way you're being treated, you don't like maybe your pay, you don't like something about it, and so you basically determine in your head to give less than 100%. You determine to basically mail it in. You determine to become a slacker, become a loser at work. I don't know. This idea is so foreign to me, and I think that's the danger. Maybe why I'm so nervous about it is because this does not help you if you're an employee to quiet quit. I don't think it's good for anyone to half-ass anything. I think you are setting yourself up for damage, not only because it's just a bad way to live. It's doesn't going to reflect well on your performance. It's not going to get you promoted. It's not going to, and maybe that's the frustration. You feel like, I understand, okay, hear me here. I'm not coming from the angle of I am a business owner, and so I'm not coming at the angle from, these employees got to get in line. I'm coming at it right now. I want to come at it from the employee side and say, listen, that's not healthy. It's never healthy to limit yourself, to live in an environment of frustration, of checking out. How is that going to help you be the best that you can be? How is that helping you motivate yourself to take the next step, right? And maybe you feel like you're quiet quitting. Like I read another article that said, it's giving the least amount possible at work to not be fired, so that you can go invest yourself into things that matter. And so maybe that's, I'm gonna invest myself into my side hobby, into my hustle that hopefully will be my thing. And I would just say again, I just don't like when you start to live in that, you give yourself permission. And if you give yourself permission to act that way, I think that comes back to you. If the culture is, I'm only going to give what I subjectively determine I'm receiving, if I subjectively determine that I'm worth more, and since you're not paying me more, or since you're not living up to this bargain inside my head, then I'm going to withhold myself from you, I think you're giving permission for the entire culture to live in that same way. And that's chaos to me. That makes no... I'm just very against subjective determinations that have not been articulated. And so this is where I would say, it may be just a few things. If you're an employee and you're considering or you're starting to act in a way would be determined as quiet quitting, I want to encourage you to say, have you confronted the problem? Have you actually talked with your boss, with management? Have you articulated your frustrations? Have you articulated clearly your concerns or your problems? Because if you have not done that, then you have not given the company, the leadership, an opportunity to respond. So if you're just assuming that, well, I'm worth this because I got onto LinkedIn and saw another job and it looked like the job that I do, and they're getting a lot more Okay, maybe. But there's a lot of other variables that go together in that. One of them being you don't have that job. So if you want that job, then go get that job and then make a determination, right? Like you need to go to your boss and ask for a raise then. You need to do the work. It just feels maybe because I live in Seattle, Washington, which is the most passive aggressive city in the world, where a lot of people think things, but they don't have the guts to actually say them. Just a city infatuated with gossip. I think that we have to be careful that we're creating a context of just really poor, a really poor environment that's going to bite us in so many ways. And so I just say, if you're the employee, make sure that you give people the opportunity to respond. Don't just assume negative. Don't just assume they're not going to give you a raise and then live out of that like it's a reality. Well, I didn't get a raise. Like, no company, right, maybe be around annual reviews or something when there maybe is culture, if there's a culture in your business of kind of that's when the raises happen. Maybe then, yeah, if that's the culture of your business. But why should you expect people just out of nowhere to be like, hey, Johnny, let's give you a raise? I mean, I don't know. I just wouldn't live in a world of that expectation. I think that you need to make yourself valuable, and you need to have conversations about what the future of your employment and pay looks like. And again, maybe it's not pay. Maybe there's just other benefits you want. Maybe it's more vacation time. Then articulate that. No one's a mind reader, right? It's the same thing with any other relationship, like marriages. Marriages suffer because of this all the time. The other spouse is like, oh, I'm being so clear about what I want. Really? Well, I look at them with my doughy eyes, and doesn't that communicate that we need a vacation in the Bahamas? No, it doesn't. It doesn't communicate anything. Like, we need to speak with clarity. So I would just encourage you, have you confronted the situation? Is there something is there real conviction there? Is a need not being met? Is there a problem in the team, in the environment that needs to be addressed? Articulate it. Stand up. Don't be passive. Communicate. Communicate clearly. And believe in yourself. Have confidence. Have a conviction. Right? Make you be an agent of change. So I just encourage you, if you're an employee, be careful, because what you give yourself into, what you say, well, if you allow yourself to then be a person who gives just a little, I think that's going to come back to bite you. I think that will, you're setting in yourself a discipline or a lack of discipline. You're setting in yourself a way and a culture and I don't know, just when I look at that, what I'm reading, it sounds very concerning to me that an individual would begin to practice those things. I don't think that will lead you to the trajectory that you desire, unless your trajectory is super selfish and consumed with yourself and consumed with how you think the world. It sounds very victimhood to me, and I would just caution that, because I don't think there are true victims in the world, and most of us aren't them. And so you want to be a hero, right? You want to face adversity and grow and become better. And quiet quitting does not sound like that. Now let me harp on the employer for a minute. If you're an employer, I just don't understand how people can be quiet quitting on you. First, is just your business so large? Is your team so large that you can't see that they're quiet quitting? That you don't have enough, like, maybe some of these businesses need to scale down. I don't know. Maybe they need better leaders. I would think the reason my employees would never consider quiet quitting is because we are developing people that are hungry, that want to get after it. And I also know if I have a person on my team that feels like, man, I love this job, I love what I'm doing here, but I want to do this. I want to do X. I want to start my own business. I want to change maybe fields, and if that takes them away from HaltingWinter, that's fine. Like, I want people to succeed. I want people to flourish. I want people to thrive ahead of my company, right? My company doesn't matter. People matter. And so I want to make sure that people, and a person that is thriving and flourishing is going to be better. Someone who's not thriving and flourishing is not going to be the best, no matter how skilled they are. That's going to hinder my company's ability to succeed. And so helping them find a better seat, either on the bus or maybe on a different bus, that's a win all around. And so you have to want people to win instead of just wanting you to win or your company to win. I think one of the ways to make sure that quiet quitting doesn't happen under your watch is you're invested in your people. You are invested in their lives. You're invested in not just their work lives, but the totality. Doesn't mean you have to know everything about them and it becomes some weird, but and this idea of your business should be family. I don't think that either. I think that can get a little creepy. But I do think it's important that the hopes, the dreams, the general things of your people so that you can, care for them. You can make sure you're mindful in how to reward them. Some people just don't. If you just assume everyone just wants a pay raise and you have really sucky benefits, maybe that's a problem. Maybe you should have conversations. I want to be invested in my people to know what makes them tick, makes them know what makes them feel rewarded and cared for. So, are you investing in your employees? Second, what kind of culture are you leading where people want to quiet quit, where people would even consider being lackluster at work? I mean, it just sounds like this is the DMV, right? You show up for the DMV, and I want to be careful here because actually my DMV process, I can't remember the last time I went. I think I went before COVID, so it's probably been a handful of years. But the last time I went to the DMV, I was slightly encouraged. I was like, wow, the employees here actually smile. They actually seem to, it's still a line, it's still a process, but it seemed to be a lot smoother, a lot quicker, a lot more enjoyable than the last 2 decades of my existence, right? 2, 3, 4 decades before that. It just felt like the DMV was always the butt of jokes of just classic bureaucratic government work where everyone dreads the day, right? It's what's the cartoon with the sloth that's just classic government work. Why do we exist? That's a place where slow quitting or quiet quitting, there's no quiet about it. It's just, just quitting. I don't even know it's quitting. You're just trying to stay alive. If you are a business owner, if you are an executive, if you are a leader of a team, I think quiet quitting speaks to the culture that you're creating. It's not a culture of purpose. It's not a culture of inspiration. It's not a culture of motivation. It's not a culture of anything really positive. And so where is the leadership? Who's leading the ship if people feel like, A, they can get away with quiet quitting, and B, they would want to act in a way that was quiet quitting? That's just really crazy to me. And so I just have questions. When I see this quiet quitting, it sounds like something you'd see at some bloated company like Amazon, Microsoft, companies that get so big that basically you hire a handful of people just to stare at screens just in case maybe you need them. I don't know. And that's not to say that there are plenty of intentional, driven people and jobs at those companies, but there's also some pockets of places where you're basically a redundancy. You're basically because they can afford to have people sit around and basically do nothing. And maybe the problem with some of these companies is they get so bloated that then you have a more weighty number of people living this quiet quitting existence. And maybe the issue is you have some of those people that feel like they're a redundancy, that don't feel like they're really a part of the team, don't feel like they're really there to contribute, they're just there to punch a clock. Maybe those are the people now in an age of kind of the solopreneur where you can start a side hustle. Maybe those are the people who are doing this, and maybe that's where the momentum's coming from. I don't know. I would just say, if you're an employee of a company that you joined because you thought it was a good company, you thought it was going places, and it still is. No company's perfect, but if you're there, why not make a difference? Why not, have you exhausted, if you're an employee, have you exhausted your communication and your ability to, if culture needs to be changed, or if culture needs to be, if things need to be brought to attention, have you done your due diligence to be an agent of that? Or are you just hoping that someone else will take care of it? And I would say that's partially on you. That's why you're there. It's not just to perform a role. Part of your role is the engagement, investment of that company. Bring things to attention. And if you're an employer, if you're a leader, and people are quiet quitting under you, that's on you. You gotta figure out your culture. You gotta figure out your investment, your attention to those people that you lead, and figure out how you can maybe open lane. Maybe you have closed lanes of communication. Maybe when people bring things to your attention that might seem negative or might seem to be something that needs to be worked on, maybe you get offended. Maybe you're the problem. You're the blockage in that system that's not allowing things to change, allowing things to come to attention because it's such a bad experience when those things have happened. So just some things to think about that concern me when I hear the quiet quitting thing, and I just continue to see it over and over. It's like every 3 articles, every 3 business tweets or something about quiet quitting. Just some things I was thinking about and kind of wanted to get off my chest. And I hope they encourage you. I hope they encourage you if you're an employee. Please, before you start acting in a way that seems to be what quiet quitting is, man, I think that's just going to have a negative impact on you as a person. Really personally, emotionally, mentally, I don't think that's a healthy way to live. I think you need to live with vitality and intentionality, and you need to give your life throttle. You need to give your life gas. You need to not be pulling back, and it's just such a negative. It seems like such a negative way to live, and I don't think that's healthy for things going forward. If you're an employee, man. Invest in your role, invest in your people, and don't allow a culture that would allow quiet quitting. That just doesn't. It seems like a culture problem. So anyway, I hope that maybe gives you something to chew on, something to think on. And so whatever your position is at your place of employment, be a factor. Be a factor of positive inspiration, of motivation. Be someone who communicates well. Be someone who is not just getting a paycheck, not just thinking about yourself, but is thinking about the company, because that company should be a force of good for the community. It should be a force of good in many different aspects, not just in a product it delivers. It shouldn't just make people money. Companies should be more than that. Okay, that's all I have for you. If you're interested in chatting and figuring out how you or your organization can operate at peak performance, hit us up, HaltingWinter.com. Until we meet again, have a good day.